The VFF's 2025 Sandra Piccolo Trailblazer Award goes to Tonya Williams.
Wow. Turn it the right way around. This is so fantastic. Thank you so much. Really, this is just huge. I hope I can put this here and it won't fall over. I've been so welcomed today and really touched by everything I've heard up here. This really is an amazing event, the Reelworld Film Festival. Antonio, I can never thank you enough for inviting me to be here. Thank you. I am honored, truly am, and I'm humbled. I want a very special thank you to PSP Service, the table that I'm at, thank you. Especially to Danny and Marina Grizan for sponsoring this Sandra Piccolo Trailblazer Award. You know, it's really wonderful to be in a city with such a creative and artistic community. That's in no small part to your mayor, Del Duca, who I met for the first time today, and Quad Reel for eventually bringing that much-needed performing arts center. That will be the crowning glory here in Vaughan. You know, as I stand here before you in my beautiful Antoinette Catenacci dress. Antoinette, I know you're out there. Thank you so much for this. I'm reminded of my journey in this industry. Trying to make it in the screen industry is challenging at best. You know, I arrived in Canada May of 1970, just shy of my 12th birthday. I like to say I came from the small island of Great Britain. I arrived here. My father was a lawyer. He later became a Supreme Court justice. My mother, a registered nurse. And believe me, no one was more surprised than them that I decided to have a career in the screen industry. As an only child, you can see that was not what they had planned for my life. But I've always been fascinated by stories. I'm an only child, and my way of understanding the world around me, understanding other human beings, was through the stories. And they started with books, but wow, when someone sat me in front of that TV set, I became a zombie. I was mesmerized. I grew up with Lost in Space, the original Lost in Space, not the remake. I grew up with Bonanza. There were so many shows back then that no one has heard about, but they really shaped how I saw the world. I didn't see myself reflected in those stories. I didn't see any Black people in those stories, and if they were there, it wasn't the most complimentary portrayal. Maybe that's where my passion came from. I really feel my passion was less about becoming an actor and more about changing people's ideas about Black people and about different communities. I feel that was more the drive for me than anything else. So when I was still in high school, there was an agent called Judy Welch at the time, and she had a modeling agency, and it asked my mother, I guess she'd seen me, and said, "Do you mind if I send Tonya out to do some TV commercials, to do some catalogs?" Now, for the young people, a catalog was a big book filled with photos of things you could buy and clothing that was delivered to your home where you had to open it. It was a long time ago. So I started to go out to do TV commercials. I started to go out and do some modeling. And my mother said, as long as it didn't interfere with my schooling. I did not know these were jobs people did. I honestly didn't. I know I was doing it, and I know I was getting money, but I didn't think like people made these as a career. But being on sets and meeting older actors, it dawned on me that this is actually something you can do with your life. And so, after high school, I applied and got into Ryerson, now called TMU. You know you're old when the university was called something else when you went there. And while I was in Ryerson, that was the beginning of me understanding my craft, understanding how you shaped character. Something very important that people don't understand is when you're training as an actor also helps you delineate yourself from the character. It keeps you always aware that you are not the character and how you use those tools to separate yourself. That's very key. But it's really the psychology of acting I loved. I love delving into a character and trying to figure out why they do the things they do. I ask endless questions to directors and writers to their annoyance about why would that character be doing those things. I did not think about, and I know it sounds silly now, I didn't think of other people watching me on anything. It never occurred to me that people watch people and then they want to get to know you. That was not anything they teach you in acting school. So I did a commercial. I remember, I think a Scotiabank commercial was the first commercial I ever did. And then you're walking down the street and people are staring at you and you're the girl in the Scotia commercial. You're like, oh, people watch this stuff. It just never occurred to me. So you can imagine when I did the polka dot door, as you saw on there. I am so proud of doing that show because for many young people, I was the first Black person they ever saw. And they actually shaped their understanding or you know what, I was worried. I didn't want the first Black person they saw to be on the news in a not very positive way. So I really wanted them to see me on polka dot door first and draw their conclusions from there. And then I did a lot of stuff in Canada, but as much as I worked in Canada, it wasn't enough to even make a living. And that's the sad reality. This was back in the late 70s, early 80s. You had to eventually make your way to the States. And I went to Los Angeles like a crazy person, like everybody does on a whim, although my version of a whim is different than others. I talked to people who were like, I've come down to LA to see if I can make it. My version was, I got an agent in LA first. I got my visa work papers together. I got some money saved up. That's my whim. And I went down to Los Angeles prepared, and I was overwhelmed. I got more auditions a week than I would get in an entire year in Canada. And honestly, to succeed in our industry, you're basically playing the odds. It's kind of like the guy at my table who was in Vegas and won. Is kind of like the same thing. You gotta play a lot to win. And while I was in Los Angeles, I did a lot of different shows. But then one day, I got an audition for a show called The Young and the Restless. Now, I know this is hard to believe. I had never heard of the show. And thank God, because I was not nervous, because I was like, I don't know what this is. And I went and I auditioned, and it was for a character called Drusilla. Now, you have to understand a little bit that one of the things I didn't do in my career was I didn't take characters that I thought were stereotyped around Black people. So if an audition came in for a prostitute or a drug addict or one of the many things that they often had Black people in, I would say, no, no, no. So when my agent said she's an illiterate person living on the street, I was like, I don't want to go for this audition. And he was like, go, because the casting directors will see you and they'll think of you for other things. Why I tell you the story is because many of you have watched the show and you now know what that character Drusilla is like. You have to imagine that I went into the audition and I spoke like I'm speaking to you right now for the role. I did not want this character role, so I just said it the way I'm talking to you right now, which is not. They really wanted, hey, girl, some sort of down home street girl, whatever. No, I was just like this. I read the whole thing. I was like, there's no way they're ever going to call me back for this. A few days later, they said, you have a call back. No one could be more shocked than me. I was like, for what? They're like, for The Young and the Restless. I'm like, you must be mistaken. They said it's for a character called Olivia. She's a doctor. She's a professional. It was like all the things that was a dream for me to portray, and I was thrilled. I go back to the audition, and normally when you go in on an audition, by the way, the room is packed with actors that look just like you. This one was not that. I was the only person in the room. I was the only person in the waiting room. So they called me in, and I auditioned with who would be Aunt Mamie. I didn't know who this woman was. I did the reading with her, and then I left the audition. As I was walking downstairs and out into the parking lot, they called me back and they said, can you go up to fitting? You start this role in a few days. I mean, it's really unheard of. It's just the magic of our industry. And that's how I started doing that role. And you know what was really funny? I got a chance to speak to Bill Bell, the creator, years later. And he goes, do you know how you got that role? Audition? He went, no, you came in and read for Drusilla. I had no concept that I was going to do a character, Olivia, at all. But he goes, something you did in that room made me see something else. And for all the emerging people, all the young talent out there, don't try and bend yourself into what you think people want you to be. Really have a set of values about what it is you want to portray in the work that you do, and stick with that no matter what. It doesn't matter if you think you can make more money doing this or that. Just keep doing what you feel you want to communicate out there to the world. And that is how I got that role. I want to tell you that when people say you're a trailblazer, it's quite frightening, because really you're just doing something you love, but you just stick with it long enough. And eventually somebody says you're a trailblazer. I am so honored to receive this. Thank you so much. This is an amazing festival. You should be so proud to have something like this up here, something that you own, that you've created, and that is yours, and that you're growing. And I cannot believe that you guys raised $1 million in 3 years. That is unheard of, truly. I want to say that those young people that came up, because I know some of you are out there, you totally inspired me today. It's the reason I created, oh, that's someone at my door. Hold on, maybe it's mail, I don't know. But I just wanted to say that I'm inspired by young people. It's the reason I created Reelworld back in 2000. Remember, as I said, I don't want people to have to leave Canada. I had to back in 1987, but now it's 2025, and we want to make sure we create opportunities for our young people to be able to have these amazing careers here at home. And that was what Reelworld was for me. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you for this. I appreciate it so much.